Hi, beautiful souls. It's Tan back here again today with you on this Astrology, Human Design, and Gene Keys channel. And today we are on to Gene Key 28, Human Design Key 28, or the Zodiac sign of Scorpio. But before we get started, if you are not familiar with the Gene Keys, this is the first time that you've stumbled upon Gene Keys or Human Design or even astrology, then I do recommend that you check out the introduction video that I made of this particular series where I'm going through the 64 Gene Keys first. So I'll provide a link to the introduction video in the description box below, so you kind of get an understanding of what I'm doing in this series and what is the Gene Keys, so you can come back and watch this video. But of course, for the rest of you guys, you are already probably really familiar with the Gene Keys. If you're interested in getting a Gene Keys reading or a Human Design reading or astrology reading, do head over to my website. We have various different services available there for you guys. If you're interested in a reading from me or any of the wonderful astrologers on my team, whatever feels right for you, then do check out my website, tanastrology.com. Links in the description box below as well. All right, so Gene Key 28. I am dressed today to suit the bird of this Gene Key, which is the crow. So we are going to start as usual by looking at the overview of this particular Gene Key. So Gene Key 28 moves from the shadow of purposelessness to the gift of totality to the siddhi of immortality, embracing the dark side. And this Gene Key is, of course, covers 2 degrees of Scorpio to 737 degrees of Scorpio. And the dream arc totem vision key bird is the crow. The life key animal is the cheetah, and the fear key underworld animal or insect is the cicada. In the codon ring, this Gene Key is part of the ring called the Ring of Illusion. And in the 64 I Ching hexagram, this hexagram is lake over wind. It's also called great excess. Critical mass, great excess, submerging the secret teachings within the simple joy of living. In Human Design, this gate is located in the spleen, and it connects to gate 37 in the root through a channel called the channel of purpose or struggle, moving from the shadow of strife to the gift of purpose to the siddhi of victory. And the programming partner of Gene Key 28 is Gene Key 27, and that's a Taurus archetype. And I've just recently made a video of Gene Key 27. I highly recommend that you check out that video as well, because the programming partner is ultimately the opposite point in the zodiac wheel from this archetype, and that offers a great balancing complementary opposite to whatever this archetype represents. So, of course, as we do with all the Gene Key videos, we start off with the bird that is associated with that particular Gene Key, and this one is the crow. So, the crow is a familiar bird for all of us, I think, in terms of its symbol. It does symbolize life mysteries, magic, also intelligence, fearlessness, and trickery. So the crow is part of the corvid bird family alongside the jay, the magpie, the raven, and various other birds. All of these birds are considered to be very intelligent, and the crow has the biggest brain-body ratio amongst all the bird species. So we can say that it is the most intelligent, if not one of the most intelligent birds in the species of birds. Crows are capable of using tools in a very complex way to solve problems. And they are also, studies have also shown that crows can actually understand physics. So they are in a rival when it comes to the intelligence with apes, we could even say. All right, so if you therefore have this Gene Key somewhere strong in your chart, or maybe it's in your Human Design body graph, or maybe it's rules one of your angles. So if you have your ascendant, midheaven, descendant, or IC from 2 degrees to 737 degrees of Scorpio, you will have this Gene Key quite strongly placed in your chart as well. So if you have this, some of the traits that you possess in your yourself is going to be a bit of a daredevil energy. You're a bit of a risk taker, and you are born with this awareness of life and death, especially death. And when you're so aware of death, you are somebody who wants to take life to the fullest. You want to live life to the fullest. Of course, we can also have the more suppressed expression of these, which are going to be traits like, fearing living, fearing death so much that you are obsessed with security, for example. You're also going to be someone who is, of course, very intelligent, very tricky, like have a brain, a mind that works in very tricky ways. You can solve very complex problems very well. And maybe, you're somebody that people come to when they are looking for somebody to solve very complex problems, whether that is like in terms of like human relationship types of problems, or whether that is like mathematical or more technical types of problems. So let's begin by looking at the shadow of purposelessness. And what does it mean when you're in this shadow of purposelessness? So Richard Rudd says that, well, we all know that as, oh my God, I'm not even, guys, a crow just landed on the fence in front of my house. No joke. But yes, he flew away now. Oh, okay, so okay, I'm getting weird vibes, but all right, I'm gonna continue with the video. So Richard Rudd says that as we human beings, we all have fears, we all know that, but the root of all of the fears of human beings comes from the fear of death. Sorry, I'm still thinking about the crow. This fear of death, it's similar to like the fear of being extinguished, the fear of no longer existing. And we all have this fear, whether we realize it or not. We're all born with it. Some of us might have been able to overcome it. Some of us may take longer to overcome it. So when we're in the shadow of purposelessness, what this means is that you are doing all kinds of things to run away or escape from this fear of death. So you are constantly living your life in a reaction state, reacting to this fear of death, whatever that might be. You may look successful to people in the world on the outside. You may be materially successful in some ways, but if you're in the shadow of purposelessness, you feel deeply inside that you're lost. Although it may not seem that way on the outside, but inside you feel lost. And that's coming because you are somehow reacting to this fear of death. You're trying to overcompensate for this fear of death. So with regards to the evolution of human beings, Richard Rudd does mention that our fear of death is actually what has helped us to sharpen our instincts so that we can survive. And it was very important for us to have our instincts sharpened in the past because we were living with a lot of predators around us. We didn't have all the technology that we have nowadays, and so we really had to be aware of incoming danger. So the fear of death is what propels us as human beings to seek for a purpose. We want to make sure that, so when you're searching for your purpose, ultimately what you're doing is you're trying to find meaning in your life before you die. Before you are completely extinguished, you want to have a firm grasp of why you are here, so that your ego is somehow fed, so that you are somehow feeling like, if I were to die, well, at least I didn't die and become extinguished for no reason. At least I have done something that I'm supposed to do here. So that fear of death leads us to search for our purpose. And when we look at it from this perspective, there's two things that we can do. There's two purposes for us to come to this earth. One is to make sure that we are healthy. So we can say that one of the purpose of being here on this earth is to make sure that we prolong the day of our death so we stay healthy. And the second purpose that we may have here is to evolve. And this purpose to evolve is directly linked to what is called creative uniqueness. When you are propelled to evolve, you then begin to tap into your uniqueness. And tapping into your uniqueness is what is a part of it. It's really imprinted in our psyche and in our minds that if we can figure out who we are, how we are unique and different from others using our creativity, then we would be in touch with our purpose, if that kind of makes sense. So in some ways, we can look at this fear of death as being something that gives your life an edge, that propels you to bring out, your uniqueness and to take risk, to follow your individual dreams. There's a bit of an illusion here as well, because fear of death and death its purpose is not to sort of threaten you and push you into this hustle of needing to follow your dreams. It's all part of your mind that does that. And by the way, the things that I just mentioned previously about finding your purpose and finding your uniqueness, it is actually a reaction to the fear of death. That is actually a way to avoid death, by the way. And another way that we may avoid death or react to death is by adopting a fixed mentality, a fixed mindset. So being very stubborn about your philosophies, about the way that you must live life, rather than living your life by embracing your fears. So these various different things that you may do as a reaction to the fear of death is putting your state of mind into the future. It's making you think about your purpose as something that you have to attain in the future, rather than something that exists within you every moment of your being, in every present moment that you are alive. And the key here is that your purpose actually lies within your fears. So you have to figure out what those fears are in order to find your purpose, not react to those fears by doing something else. Because if you are just living your life in a reaction to the fear of death, you are ultimately living your life in fear. And when you are living your life in fear, you're not really living. You are just ultimately trying to survive. And you are living in an illusion, because ultimately our fears, they're kind of illusions. We tend to fear. So if you're living in the present moment, you will find that there's nothing to fear. If I'm sitting here in my room and I'm just here, I'm just looking around me, looking at the candles that I've lit. I'm just looking at the book of Richard Wright here. I'm just smelling, the scent of this room. What is there to fear? But if I'm suddenly thinking about, well, what if the fire goes out? What if this candle just kind of lights my room on fire? This is not happening now. This is a projection of what could happen in the future, right? Or what if I'm just thinking about something that happened in the past that could affect me now? Like maybe yesterday I was making fire in my fireplace, and it was a little bit of an aggressive fire. So now I'm fearing that it's going to happen again. So you see how fears are a little bit an illusion. Nothing is happening in this moment that should cause you any fear. They're either something that you're perceiving in the future or something that's coming from your past. There's no truth, or there's no reality in fear. But here's the thing. You can never actually take away your fears. The only thing that you can do is identify those fears, identify where they're coming from, why you're having them, and accept them, and find wholeness in it. So we're going to get into the gift a little bit of, how this, what could actually be the results of you living, embracing your fears and living with your fears rather than escaping from it. But the two different types of manifestations of the shadow in the repressed version of the shadow of purposelessness, this is living your life feeling very hollow and like your life is devoid of any juice. You live in a life feeling deeply without any sense of purpose. Like I mentioned previously, you may be glamorous, you may be successful, you may have a lot of money, but there's no center. You don't know what is the center that's grounding you. You are just revolving with the world. So when you're in this repressed shadow of being hollow, you're not facing your own fears, and you are living a half-lived life. You are pretending to be happy or maybe even evolved, but you lack depth and understanding. And I want to give you an example of somebody that I know who was born with her sun in Gene Key 28, and I think she's in the repressed shadow of it. So she is a very beautiful woman, very happy when you meet her, very outgoing. And I think she's doing some kind of her own business. She's starting her own business, which has something to do with like spirituality and yoga and so on and so forth. But she's having problems in her relationship in her life. And she wanted to come to me to get some advice. So I don't know her very well, right? So if she wanted to come to me for a reading, she would have to purchase it because I don't know her very well at all. I know her through a friend. And my friend is recommending her to buy a reading from me so she can know more about how she can love herself better. That was her question. Like, how can I love myself better? How can I know myself more? Because I'm feeling like something is lacking in my life. Although on the surface, she seems very successful, very happy, like she's just high on her life. But then there's this part of her that wants to, figure out some of the darker parts of herself. But she didn't want to purchase a reading from me because she said it was too expensive. And so I know that she's not financially insufficient, right? Because she's having her own business. So she is financially able to get a reading for herself. But there's something that's holding her back from doing that. And what I felt from that situation was like, well, if you're not willing to invest a little bit in yourself, that's the foundation of self-love, is to, you can spend money to decorate your yoga studio, fine. But you don't even want to spend that money to get to know yourself better. So something was just off about that situation. And I tell you that it is coming from this shadow, this repressed shadow of purposelessness, that she will continue to feel this hollow feeling inside of herself. She can have the most successful yoga studio in the world and feel very successful. But if she doesn't understand herself, if she doesn't get to know herself, she doesn't invest in herself, she will continue to feel hollow. So that is just an example of the repressed shadow of purposelessness. When we come to the reactive shadow of purposelessness, it is called gambling. So this is when you react to the fear of death by being risk-taking. When you realize that one day you could be gone from this world, maybe it's tomorrow. So therefore, you are going to do a lot of risky activities to make sure that you've lived life to the fullest. So you transform your fear into activity to cloak your fear. You are on the move all the time. You don't stop to really examine the fear that is driving you to run away from your fear. You are the type that will try anything, the daredevil type that will just try anything, but still feeling a sense of purposelessness deep inside. So how do we transform purposelessness into the gift of totality? And this is a beautiful gift. It's like wholeness. It's totality and wholeness. So one of the first things that you have to do to get into this gift of totality is to live with your fears. Of course, it's to embrace your fears, to live alongside it, to live with the unexpected, and to trust life, to be open to continual change while remaining committed. It means that you are embracing the whole nature of your life, the pain and the pleasure. You are following a mythical path, and you embrace all the challenges that life brings you. And as you face all of these challenges that life brings you, you begin to gather and compound the different parts of your psyche together. You see, when you actually live alongside your fears, okay, what does that actually mean to live alongside your fears? So something just popped up into my mind, and I wanted to share that with you. And so if you guys have been following my channel, you know that my dad died in 2022. He reached his death. He reached the end of his life. And, the whole of 2022 was very hard for me, because not only did I lose my dad and I really missed him, but I was in this fear of, well, what would happen if I lost another person that I loved? And that person was, of course, my boyfriend. And because I watched my mom, lose her husband, and that's much harder than me losing my dad. To have a wife lose her husband, that is much, much, much harder. And I had to watch her go through that. And I just felt this anxiety inside me. Like, what if I lost my boyfriend? What if I lost my partner? I would have to go through what my mom went through, right? And so there were so many instances in my life where I told myself that, if I just ended the relationship, it would be so much easier. Or if I just made sure that I could die before my boyfriend, that would be a lot easier, so I don't have to live my life without him. So these are fears that have come up, right? But I'm not going to act on any of them because I know they're irrational and they're illusions and they're not really real. So I'm going to have to live alongside them in my life. And of course, sometimes I'm going to have to work through them, and I'm going to have to, share that with my partner. Live with the fear, dive into it completely and embrace it totally into my life. And maybe sometimes allow myself to laugh about it, but sometimes sit with it and really dig into it. What's the worst case scenario that could happen? How would I survive if my partner did die before me, for example? So this is living alongside of your fears. And of course, I am in the process of that. I'm not going to be an expert. I can't tell you exactly like the practical steps of how you're going to do that and so on and so forth. But this is just, an example of what it could look like when you are living alongside your fears and you're allowing your fears to be a part of your life. But you still live your life. You still continue with it with the awareness that these fears exist and there's trauma related to it. There's darkness related to it. And they are inside of you. And this is what Carl Jung called the process of individuation. This is what certain people call the incarnation of your full soul. So, this is about risking yourself to build something that you don't even know what the completion of it would look like. You cannot really see it until it's fully complete. You have to allow yourself to be alive in every single present moment that you are alive. If you had that fear that your loved ones could pass away anytime, don't waste your life, trying to convince your loved one to live a healthier life. Don't try to convince them to, eat this and exercise this and this if they don't want to, because that's not going to make anybody happy. You're not going to be able to live. Accept what they are in that phase of their life that they are and enjoy the time that you have with them. Be alive as much as possible and be in the present moment with them as much as possible. And this applies to all areas of your life, whether that's your career, or maybe it's your loved ones, like I mentioned, or maybe it's your community, whatever it might be. So when you are living your life with the gift of totality, you see that life is a game to be played. Every situation that happens in your life gives you the choice of remaining as you are or becoming more evolved because of it. And you will begin to see that there is an underlying purpose to everything that happens in your life. And that is your purpose. You are no longer purposeless when you can see the lessons that lies within everything that's happened in your life so far. And so when you're living with this gift of totality, you begin to realize that one of the purpose for you here in this life is to serve others. And so you become very service-minded in a sense. And one important thing to remember when you're in service to others is that you are fully giving yourself 100% to whatever it is that you do. That is true service. And the ironic thing about being able to give 100% of yourself into everything that you do means that you have to remain committed to the endeavors that you take, the people that you're with, but you must also remain detached enough at the same time. You must be able to see that life is a movie, that it is a game to be played at the same time. All right, now we get to the siddhi of immortality. So like I mentioned with all my Gene Key videos, I don't want to go too deep into the siddhi because the siddhi is a state of being. It's when you no longer have to do anything, and you will reach that state of the siddhi when you are repeatedly living in the vibration of the gift of whichever gene key we're talking about. So Richard Rudd mentions that when we talk about the word immortality, the human mind can only understand immortality from its own limitations. And the mind can only conceptualize something within time. And so therefore, we can only understand immortality as an ability to be on this timeline that never ends. That's how the human mind understands immortality. It's this understanding that time stretches into the future forever. That's how the mind comprehends immortality. But Richard Rudd says that true immortality is actually the cessation of time altogether. This is the only way to escape death, to live so entirely within the present moment that death cannot exist. Immortality means to die into the everlasting moment. So like I mentioned, in order to do this, you have to have a certain amount of detachment. Your identity and your ego and your sense of separateness must first die, leaving only life as it is in its place. When you do that, there is no longer anything left to die. How beautiful is that? It's like, okay, let me just practically like put this for you. It's like, you know, you have that fear of your partner dying. But that fear only comes because you're projecting something into the future, into time. But every moment that you're living with this person, if you can put your whole entire being and aliveness and celebrate the moment that you have with them from a place of detachment. You can only do that when you're detached, meaning when you are no longer associating like your ego, your experiences, your identity to it. That has completely died, and you dive right into just the pure present moment with that person. That exists forever. There is no end to that because there is nothing to die anymore. Life goes on living, and what you have in that moment is only life. There is no you in the life, you in this timeline of life. There is only the life itself, and that keeps running and running and keeps going. It's kind of like love. Love never ceases. Love exists forever. Even when you're not physically here, the love that you put out into the energy, into the energy of love that you put out into the vibration of the world will exist forever. So if you are, you know, in the gift of totality or the siddhi of immortality, you understand that your gift here, your special gift here, is to highlight the fears of others, wherever you might be, whoever you might meet. So Richard Rudd calls this siddhi of immortality the beast, the nature of the beast, because in the animal kingdom, and if we really think about it, animals are the only species that is really living in the present moment. You know, the raw animal-like nature is really what is in the present moment. And that is the true nature of the beast, of the animals, is that they're immortal. And I know there's a lot of controversial ways of looking at this. Like, this topic is a little bit controversial because there are going to be people out there who feel that as human beings, we have to honor the fact that we are able to think about the future and the past. That's what separates us from animals. That's what has caused us to evolve. And I totally agree with that. But here I'm just talking specifically about this archetype. You know, the other archetypes in the Gene Keys are not going to address this, but this specific archetype is addressing this theme of the nature of the beast. I hope that's kind of making sense. So I want to end this by reading a quote from the Gene Keys book. The animal kingdom of our planet constitutes an awareness that already operates in the immortal fields and whose sacrifice suggests an evolution even higher than our own. At a physical level, man must absorb his entire animal nature into himself in order for its true purpose to be shown. Only then will we see for the first time the true nature of the beast. I think that was just beautiful. So that's going to be the end of my transmission of Gene Key 28, Human Design Gate 28, Zodiac sign of Scorpio. And if any of you guys have this particular Gene Key, then comment below. Let us know what your experiences have been. I love reading your comments. And if you like this video, give it a thumbs up. If you haven't subscribed, then hit the subscribe button. Stay tuned to more content of Gene Keys, astrology, and human design, and other types of metaphysical systems as well. And if you haven't watched the video that I made on your programming partner, which is Gene Key 27, head over there and check out that video as well. And if you're interested in getting a reading from me or anyone on my astrology team, then head over to our website and check out the services that we have available there and see what feels right for you at tanastrology.com. So that's it for today, beautiful souls. Sending you all so much love.